Out from the Heart by James Allen. Chapter 5. First Steps in the Higher Life. Seeing that the path of virtue is the path of knowledge, and that before the all embracing principles of truth can be comprehended, perfected, in the more lowly steps must be acquired. How, then, shall a discipline of truth begin? How should one who aspires to the righting of his mind and purification of his heart, that heart which is the fountain of reciprocity, repository of all the issues of life, learn the lessons of virtue? How does he thus build himself up in the strength of knowledge, destroying ignorance and the ills of life? What are the first lessons, the first steps? How are they learned? How are they practiced? How are they mastered and understood? The first lesson consists in overcoming those wrong mental conditions which are most easily eradicated and which are the most common barriers to spiritual progress, as well as in practicing the simple domestic and social virtues. The reader will be better aided if I group and classify the first 10 steps in 3 lessons as follows: vices of the body to be overcome and eradicated. First lesson: discipline of the body. First step: idleness, laziness, or indolence. Second step: self-indulgence and gluttony. Second lesson: discipline of speech. Third step: slander. Fourth step: gossip and idle conversation. Fifth step: abusive and unkind speech. Sixth step: frivolity and irreverent speech. Seventh step: critical, captious, or fault finding speech. Third lesson: discipline of tendencies. Eighth step: unselfish performance of duty. Ninth step: unswerving rectitude or moral integrity. 10th step: unlimited forgiveness. The 2 vices of the body and the 5 of the tongue are so called because they are manifested in the body and tongue. Also, by so definely classifying them, the mind of the reader will be better helped. But it must be clearly understood that these vices arise primarily in the mind and are wrong conditions of the heart worked out in the body and the tongue. The existence of such chaotic conditions is an indication that the mind is altogether unlightened as to the real meaning and purpose of life, and their eradication is the beginning of a virtuous, steadfast, and enlightened life. How shall these vices be overcome and eradicated? By first, and at once, checking and controlling their outward manifestation by suppressing the wrong act. This will stimulate the mind to watchfulness and reflection until, by repeated practice, it will come to perceive and understand the dark, wrong, erroneous condition of the mind, out of which such acts spring. It will then abandon them entirely. It will be seen that the first step is the discipline of the mind is overcoming of indolence or laziness. This is the easy step, and until it is perfectly accomplished, the other steps cannot be taken. The clinging to indolence constitutes a complete barrier to the path of truth. Indolence consists in giving the body more ease than sleep than it requires, in procrastination, and in shirking and neglecting those things which should receive immediate attention. This condition of laziness must be overcome by rousing up the body at an early hour, giving it just the amount of sleep it requires for complete recuperation, and by doing promptly and vigorously every task, every duty, no matter how small it is, as it comes along. On no account should food or drink be taken in bed, and to lie in bed after one has awakened, indulging in ease and reverie. is a habit fatal to promptness and resolution of character and purity of mind. Nor should one attempt to do this thinking at such a time. Strong, pure, and true thinking is impossible under such circumstances. A man should go to bed to sleep, not to think. He should get up to think and work, not to sleep. The next step is overcoming of self-indulgence or gluttony. The glutton is one who eats for animal gratification only, without considering the true end and object of eating. He eats more than his body requires and is greedy after sweet things and rich dishes. Such undisciplined desire can only be overcome by reducing the quantity of food eaten and the number of meals per day, and by restoring to a simple and uninvolved diet. Regular hours should be set apart for meals, and eating at other times should be rigidly avoided. Suppers should be abolished, as they are altogether unnecessary, and promote heavy sleep and cloudiness of mind. The pursuit of such a method of discipline will rapidly bring the once ungoverned appetite under control. As the sensual sin of self-indulgence is taken out of the mind, the right selection of food will be instinctively and infallibly adapted to a purified mental condition. It should be well borne in the mind that the change of heart is the needful thing, and that any change of diet which does not promote this end is futile. When one eats for enjoyment, he is gluttonous. The heart must be purified of sensual craving and gustatory lust. When the body is well controlled and firmly guided, when that which is to be done is done vigorously, when no task or duty is delayed, when early rising has become a delight, when frugality and simplicity, temperance and abstinence are firmly established, when one is contented with the food which is put before him, no matter how scanty and plain, and the craving for gustatory pleasure is at an end, then the first two steps in the higher life are accomplished. Then is the first great lesson in truth learned. Thus is established in the heart and the foundation of a poised, self-governed, virtuous life. The next lesson is the lesson of virtuous speech, in which there are 5 orderly steps. The first of these is overcoming the habit of slanderous speech. Slander consists of inventing or repeating unkind and evil reports about others, and exposing and magnifying the faults of others, or of absent friends, in the introduction unworthy insinuations. The element of thoughtlessness, cruelty, insincerity, and untruthfulness enter into every slanderous act. He who aims at the living of right life will commence to check the cruel world of slander before it has gone forth from his lips. He will then check and eliminate the insincere thought which gave rise to it. He will watch that he does not vilify or defame anyone. He will refrain from disparaging, defaming, or condemning the absent friend whose face he has so recently smiled into or kissed, or whose hand he has shaken. He will not say of another that which he dare not say to his face, thus coming to think scarcely of the character and reputation of other. He will destroy those wrong conditions of the mind which gave rise to slander. The next step is overcoming of gossip and idle conversation. Idle speech consists of talking about the private affairs of others, and talking merely to pass away the time, and engaging in aimless and irreverent conversation. Such an ungoverned condition of speech is the outcome of an irregulated mind. The man of virtue will bridle his tongue, and thus learn how to rightly govern the mind. He will not let his tongue run idly and foolishly, but he will make his speech strong and pure. He will either talk with a purpose or remain silent. Abusive and unkind speech is the next vice to be overcome. The man who abuses and accuses others has himself wandered far from the right way. To hurl hard words and names at another is to sink deeply into folly. When a man is inclined to abuse, curse, and condemn others, let him restrain his tongue and look within himself. The virtuous man refrains from all abusive language and quarreling. He employs only words that are useful, necessary, pure, and true. The sixth step is overcoming of levity or irreverent speech, light and frivolous talking, the repeating of crude jokes, the telling of vulgar stories, having no other purpose than to raise an empty laugh, offensive familiarity, and the employment of contemptuous and disrespectful words when speaking to or of others, and particularly of one's elders and those who rank as one's teachers, guardians, or superiors. All of this will he put away by the lover of virtue and truth. Upon the altar of irreverence, absent absent friends and companions are immolted for the passing excitement of a momentary laugh, and all the sanctity of life is sacrificed to the zest for ridicule. When respect towards others and giving of reverence, when reverence is due, are abandoned, virtue is abandoned. When modesty, significance, and dignity are eliminated from speech and behavior, truth is lost. Yea, even the entrance gate is hidden away and forgotten. Irreverence is degrading even in the young, but when it accompanies gray hairs and appears in the demeanor of a preacher, this is indeed a piteous spectacle. And when this can be imitated and followed after, then are the blind leading the blind. Then have elders, preachers, and the people lost their way. The virtuous will be of earnest and reverent speech. He will think and speak of the absent as he thinks and speaks of the dead, tenderly and sacredly. He will put away thoughtlessness and watch that he does not sacrifice his dignity to gratify a passing impulse to frivolity or superficiality. His humors will be pure and innocent, his voice will be subdued and musical, and his soul will be filled with grace and sweetness as he succeeds in conducting himself as becomes a man of truth. The last step in the second lesson is the overcoming of criticism or fault-finding speech. This vice of the tongue consists of magnifying or harping on small apparent faults and foolish quibbling or hair-splitting, and the pursuing vain arguments based on groundless suppositions, beliefs, and opinions. Life is short and real, and sin, sorrow, and pain are not remedied by carpeting or contention. The man who is ever on the watch to catch at the words of others in order to contradict and dispute them has yet to reach a higher way of holiness. The truer life of self-surrender, the man who is ever on the alert to check his own words in order to soften and purify them, will find the higher way and the truer life. He will conserve his energies, maintaining his composure of mind, and preserve within himself the truth of the Spirit. The Spirit of truth. When the tongue is well controlled and wisely subdued, when selfish impulses and unworthy thoughts no longer rush to the tongue demanding utterance, when the speech has become harmless, pure, gentle, gracious, and purposeful, and no word is uttered but in sincerity and honesty, then these 5 steps to virtuous speech accomplished. Then is the second great lesson in truth learned and mastered. And now some will ask, but why all this discipline of the body and restraint of the tongue? Surely the higher life can be realized and known without such strenuous labor, such incessant effort and watchfulness. No, it cannot. In the spiritual as the material, nothing is done without labor, and the higher cannot be known until the lower is fulfilled. Can a man make a table before he has learned how to handle a tool or drive a nail? Can a man fashion his mind in accordance with truth before he has overcome the slavery of his body? As the intricate subtleties of language cannot be understood and wielded before the alphabet and the simplest words are mastered, neither can the deepest subtleties of the mind be understood and purified before the ABCs of right conduct is perfectly acquired. As of the labor involved, does not the youth joyfully and patiently submit himself to 7 years' apprenticeship in order to master a craft? And does he not, day by day, carefully and faithfully carry out every detail of his master's instructions, looking forward to the time when, perfected through obedience and practice, he shall be himself a master? Where is the man who sincerely aims at excellence in music, painting, literature, or any trade, business, or profession, who is not willing to give his whole life to the acquirement of that particular perfection? Shall labor, then, be considered where the very highest excellence is concerned, the excellence of truth? He who says, the path which you have pointed out is too difficult, I must have truth without labor, salvation without effort, that man will not find his way out of confusions and suffering of selfhood. He will not find the calm, well fortified mind and the wisely ordered life. His love is for ease and enjoyment and not truth. He who deep in his heart adores truth and aspires to know it will consider no labor too great to be undertaken, but will adopt it joyfully and pursue it patiently. By preserving in practice, he will come to the knowledge of truth, the necessity for the preliminary discipline of the body, and the tongue will be more clearly perceived when it is fully understood that all these wrong outward conditions are merely the expressions of wrong conditions of the heart. An indolent body means an indolent mind. An irregulated tongue reveals an irregulated mind, and the process of remedying the manifested condition is really a method of rectifying the inward state. Moreover, the overcoming of these conditions is only a small part of what is really involved in the process. The ceasing from evil leads to and is inseparably connected with the practice of good. While a man is overcoming laziness and self-indulgence, he is really cultivating and developing the virtues of abstinence, temperance, punctuality, and self-denial. He is acquiring the strength, energy, and resolve which are indispensable to the successful accomplishment of the higher task. While he is overcoming the vices of speech, he is developing the virtues of truthfulness, sincerity, and reverence, kindliness, and self-control, and is gaining that mental steadiness and fixedness of purpose, without which the more remote subtleties of the mind cannot be regulated, and the higher states of conduct and enlightenment cannot be reached. Also, as he has to do right, his knowledge deepens, his insight is intensified. Just as a child's heart is glad when a school task is mastered, so with each victory achieved, the man of virtue experiences a bliss which the seeker after pleasure and excitement can never know. And now we come to the third lesson in the higher life, which consists of practicing and mastering in one's daily life three great fundamental virtues: unselfish performance of duty, unwavering rectitude or moral integrity, unlimited forgiveness. Having prepared the mind by overcoming the more surface and chaotic conditions mentioned in the first two lessons, the striver after virtue and truth is now ready to enter upon the greater and more difficult task and to control and purify the deeper motives of the heart. Without the right performance of duty, the higher virtues cannot be known, and truth cannot be apprehended. Duty is generally regarded as an irksome labor, a compulsory something which must be toiled through or be in some way avoided. This way of regarding duty proceeds from a self-condition of mind and a wrong understanding of life. All duty should be regarded as sacred, and it is faithful and unselfish performance one of the leading rules of conduct. All personal and selfish consideration should be extracted and cast away from the doing of one's duty. And when this is done, duty ceases to become irksome and becomes joyful. Duty is only irksome to him who craves some selfish enjoyment or benefit for himself. Let the man who is chafing under the irksomeness of his duty look to himself, and he will find that his wearisome proceeds not from duty itself, but from his selfish desire to escape it. He who neglects duty, be it great or small, of a public or a private nature, neglects virtue. He who in his heart rebels against duty rebels against virtue. When duty becomes a thing of love And when every particular duty is done accurately, faithfully, and dispassionately, there is such a subtle selfishness removed from the heart, and a great step is taken towards the heights of truth. The virtuous man concentrates his mind on the perfect doing of his own duty, and does not interfere with the duty of another. The ninth step is the practice of unswerving rectitude or moral integrity. This virtue must be firmly established in the mind, and so enter into every detail of a man's life. All dishonesty, deception, trickery, misrepresentation must forever be put away, and the heart purged of every vestige of insincerity and deception. The least digression from the path of rectitude or righteousness is a deviation from virtue. There must be no extravagance or exaggeration of speech, but the simple truth should be stated. Engaging in deception, no matter how apparently insignificant, or boastful pride, or with the hope of personal advantage, is a state of delusion which one should make an effort to dispel. It is demanded of a man of virtue that he shall not only practice the most rigid dishonesty in thought, word, and deed, but that he shall be exact in his statements, omitting and adapting nothing to the actual truth. In thus shaping his mind to the principle of rectitude or moral integrity, he will gradually come to deal with people and things in a just and impartial spirit, considering equity before himself and viewing all things with freedom from personal bias, passion, and prejudice. When the virtue of rectitude is fully practiced and comprehended, so that all temptations to untruthfulness and insincerity has ceased, then in his heart made pure and nobler, then is character strengthened and knowledge enlarged, and life takes on a new meaning, a new power. Thus is the ninth step accomplished. The 10th step is the practice of unlimited forgiveness. This consists in overcoming the sense of injury which springs from vanity, selfishness, and pride, and in exercising a disinterested charity and large-heartedness towards others. Spite, retaliation, and revenge are so utterly ignoble, so base, and so small and foolish, as to be altogether unworthy of being noticed or harbored. No one who fosters such conditions in his heart can lift himself above folly and suffering, and guide his life artfully. Only by casting them away and ceasing to be moved by them can a man's eyes be opened to the true way of life. Only by developing an forgiving and charitable spirit can he hope to approach and perceive the strength and beauty of a well-ordered life. In the heart of the strongly virtuous man, no feeling of personal injury can arise. He has put away all retaliation and has no enemies. If other men should regard themselves as his enemy, he will regard them kindly, understanding their ignorance and making full allowance for it. When this state of the heart is arrived, then the 10th step in the discipline of one's self-seeking inclinations is accomplished. Then the third great lesson of virtue and knowledge is learned and mastered. Having thus laid down the first steps and 3 lessons in doing right and right knowing, I leave those of my readers who are prepared for them to learn and master them in their everyday life. There is, of course, a still higher discipline of the body, a more far-reaching discipline of the tongue, and a greater and more all-embracing virtue to acquire and understand before the highest state of bliss and knowledge can be grasped. But it is not my purpose to deal with them here. I have expounded only the first and easiest lessons of the higher path, and by the time these are thoroughly mastered, the reader will have become so purified, strengthened, and enlightened that he will not be left in the dark as to his future progress. Those of my readers who have completed these 3 lessons will already have perceived beyond and above the high altitudes of truth and the narrow and precipitous track which leads them, and will choose whether they shall proceed. The straight path which I have laid down can be pursued by all with greater profit to themselves and to the world. And even those who do not aspire to the attainment of truth will develop a greater intellectual and moral strength, finer judgment, and deeper peace of mind by perfecting themselves in this path. Nor will their material prosperity suffer by this change of heart. Nay, they will be endured truer, purer, and more enduring. For if there is one who is capable of succeeding and fitting to achieve, it is the man who has abandoned the petty weaknesses of everyday vices of his kind, who is strong enough to rule his body, and who pursues with fixed resolve the path of unanswered integrity and sterling virtue.